What's going on, everybody? So today I'm going to talk a little bit about the overlapping symptoms issue that I'm dealing with right now. It's This is meant to be data to help you sort out your own diagnoses as far as if you're a toxic chemical case, if you've been exposed to any of this stuff, what you can actually do about it to try to make things simpler on yourself. Um, so the quick version is this all restarted last year. I started having way too many symptoms, way too many problems, needed to see doctors. But my first primary care, when I went to them, it was like I was overloading them, throwing too much at them. Part of the reason for this is because the civilian side and military side of all this toxic chemical exposure stuff, they have different information. The civilian side is not as informed about what is going on, and that is intentionally done by the military. The military has been trying to absolve everything through disability cases or this or that class action, as much public denial as they can get away with, or kicking the can down the road. So the civilian side has been trying to play catch up. That's the first problem. If they knew the things that I knew about this stuff in some cases, they might realize, oh yeah, we need to do this, this, and this. But I think I rub people the wrong way sometimes with what I'm trying to do because I know a little bit more about it. It's not that I'm a doctor, but it's my diagnoses. Part of that, another thing that goes with this is, yes, I study chemistry and biology and all this stuff. No, I don't have a degree. Get over it. Like, I'm 96 to 97 percentile comprehension level. I was recommended for advanced classes, and doctors wanted me on Ritalin. Never went back to the advanced classes. So if I have all these problems and I understand science, I'm going to try to understand my own conditions. I'm going to try to figure all this stuff out. I can understand how that can be misinterpreted with some people, especially with my ADHD, as hypochondria or something, like you're just freaking out about stuff. I'm like, no, I'm getting a lot of diagnoses here, and I got to rule stuff out. Um, but the point being here, over the past year, it's been a pain. And when I spoke to the original primary care, it was too much for them. They throw out the referrals. They're not taking it serious. Nobody's calling me back. It's like, hey, we'll see you at your follow up, whatever. We'll do some more blood work. And I'm like, you're not hearing me. So by the time I made it to my second follow up, or my first follow up with them, I had already been to a spinal specialist, gone through physical therapy, gone to get an MRI, and gotten 4 new diagnoses. My neck. I've got two bulged discs, straightening of the cervical lordosis, and a birth defect called an Arnold Chiari 1 malformation. Uh, doesn't require surgery, but it causes me some problems. So, uh, beyond that, they finally get me to a gastro referral, but it takes 6 months. By this time, I've already switched primary care because I wasn't getting the treatment I needed. So I switched primary care, and then I'm seeing the specialist appointments back to back. Well, I go to gastro, and it's diagnosis after diagnosis. All right, so I get precancers, 2 tubular adenoma removed in the colon, uh, precancer, Barrett's esophagus from GERD. It's type 2 reflux, and my esophagus is turning into my stomach lining. Um, so that's a precancer as well. I have a 3 centimeter hiatal hernia, got internal hemorrhoids, I got an IBS. I mean, why wouldn't I, right? I mean, with all that going on. So I end up with all these different diagnoses, and I'm like, wait a second. And I remember my uncle was at Camp Lejeune for 6 years. He's just recently talked to me about all the stuff he's going through and how I probably need to have some stuff looked at because I was born on Grand Forks, North Dakota Air Force Base, and that's the Camp Lejeune of the Air Force, and they got all these problems. And I'm talking to my dad, and next thing you know, I'm like, I really do have quite a bit of symptoms, and so I need to let's stay on top of this. And in the middle of all that, I'd also gone to an ENT. Finally saw an ENT, and I'm finding out, yeah, I'm allergic to god awful everything. I mean, just that's the easiest way to put it. It is easier to presume that I am allergic to something than it is to presume that I am not. And and it's so bad. I'm not allergic to peanuts or latex or like your normal stuff like people. It's all just everything else. You know what I mean? Like it's just the stuff associated, your molds and all this stuff associated with soil and vegetation. And then it's all the indoor stuff. You got indoor and outdoor allergies. And I got food allergies. And I got this and that allergies. I'm obviously messed up. I've got EpiPens. I never knew. I was just choking down Benadryl all the time. It's weird when you wait too long and you start trying to piece it together. It gets complex. You got to take charge of your life, take control, pay attention to what you're eating, drinking, actually do the necessary segregation of data here, and figure yourself out. It's on you. Um, so that's the mentality I've had about this. And I get that diagnosis, and I find out a tube's embedded in my eardrum, been in there for 20 years. Doctor's like, yeah, right. Then I tell him who did it. He happens to know the doctor. The doctor's been retired for 15 years, and he's like, holy shit, you really had a tube embedded in your eardrum for potentially up to 20 years. Yeah, that's a problem. And I kept having regular primary cares tell me, you don't have a tube in that ear. It's gone. You're crazy. It's not there. It was. And so this is the kind of stuff you're dealing with. Well, that was the third time I'd had tubes put in my ears at that. Now they want to put tubes back in my ears for a fourth time. Fourth time now. They want to put tubes back in my ears. Why? Because I have reverse pressure, drainage issues, hearing loss. Now there's a bunch of scar tissue buildup, probably from the tubes. It's like I can't win for losing. And so it's Sudafed and allergy pills, nasal spray, all this stuff. Well, between the digestive and the allergy stuff, there's reasons why I talk about all this like this. Just causes a lot of breathing issues, right? Lots of breathing issues. You'd expect it. It's just okay. Move on with your life. But when you start taking the nasal sprays, and you start taking the Sudafed, you start taking all this different stuff, and you're doing everything right, and you're avoiding your trigger foods or whatever else, and you're still having breathing problems, reality hit me. I'm like, I'm 38 years old, smoker, off and on, whatever. I've never had a chest x-ray. Like mesothelioma and these things are the one of the number one things you ever search for. Why have I never had a chest x-ray? Well, first, I was blowing it off for years. Secondly, I've spent the past 6 to 8 months making sure, not being a hypochondriac. Oh, I've got breathing problems. Let's try to address those. And so I've been addressing everything from allergies to foods to this and that. And so now I'm to the point that, yeah, I'm going to talk to my doctor when I go in here in a few days, and I'm going to say, we need to go ahead and do a chest x-ray. Why? Well, I've got all of these symptoms, and I'm a toxic chemical case, and I spent 6 to 8 months trying to get better, and I'm still having some breathing issues. It's the appropriate thing to do. Okay, this is the stuff you have to do. You have to literally micromanage your life here and figure stuff out. That's where this will end up if you're a toxic chemical case. So I have to handle things in that regard. Well, then you have something like vitiligo, which I'm not taking all my clothes off again, but I'm 80% albino. The pigment's going fast. It's just gone. So I have some left on my face, and I got some left here on my arm right here. But even, this is the odd part, even the pigment that I have is lighter than the rest of my family. That's important here in a second. I'm having all these different symptoms. Exhaustion and fatigue and my muscles hurting and stuff like that. And I'm a smart guy. I'm thinking, I got skeletal issues, a couple birth defects, all this other stuff. I probably some peripheral neuropathy, just, you don't even know what that is. Peripheral neuropathy, just, some stuff with my hands and my feet, and it's going to feel a little bit weird. And it's probably from all the skeletals. Oh, and I got osteoporosis and a vitamin D deficiency. Well, vitamin D deficiency is real easy to figure out when you have a doctor like I have now that goes, you have vitiligo and a dairy allergy. I'm betting insufficient vitamin D. Real smart lady, Miss Suarez. Thank you. So I'm bouncing all this stuff back and forth, and you're looking at it and you're going, well, this is associated with that. That's associated with it. What do we even do about this? How do we rule stuff out? Well, turns out vitiligo, there's association with all different kinds of stuff, right? Autoimmune conditions, etc. Right? Okay. Well, I've got 10 different back and forth things going on here that are about to all intersect, just every which way. Every condition I have is right here, just all together intersecting. This is how crazy this gets. The digestive stuff causes breathing issues, right? All that. I'm a smoker. That could cause breathing issues. But I'm also on the treadmill every day. Even with all my problems, I make sure that I get on the treadmill every day. Blood flow, I'm outside dealing with plants. But then I go outside to deal with the garden because I want some tomatoes and stuff, and I have breathing issues from that. So I'm watching everything I'm doing. I know what's doing what and what's triggering what. But there's still testing that has to be done because of intersects and overlaps and things that you can't rule out. As bad as you want to say I'm fine, this is a problem. So muscle fatigue, soreness, all this stuff. Some of it could be arthritis. Some of it could be from that skeletal, but the muscle stuff isn't, Well, I've got relatives that have neuropathy. They're also diabetic or obese or this or that. There's no way to really verify any kind of heredity or this or that because I'm so different than my other family members that have problems that are directly related to other things. Okay, so you almost got to rule them out and just say, yeah, but they don't count. There's nothing you can really do about it. The source data gets tainted by that because we're so different. And so I say, okay, the vitiligo stuff, this, that, and the other. Wait a second, vitiligo. You'd think it's an autoimmune condition. That's what it typically is. If it's this bad, it's an autoimmune condition. But then I find out that the toxic chemical exposure causes vitiligo that is not autoimmune related, but it's just as bad. The generalized symmetrical, 80% albino, this, that, and the other. It's just as bad, but it's not autoimmune related. Well, how in the hell am I supposed to figure that out? Turns out you can do a real simple thyroid test. Oddly enough, the chemical exposure stuff causes hypothyroidism, either overactive or underactive thyroid. So yeah, I could just have hypothyroid from the chemical exposure, or it could be another thing with the vitiligo as far as autoimmune condition. But I can really easily sort this out. If you do a hypothyroid test, okay, if you don't have any problems with your thyroid, you're not only ruling out the hypothyroid, okay, which tells you that you don't have the hypothyroid from the toxic chemical exposure. Thank God. It appears that I do not have that. But it rules out the autoimmune version of the vitiligo, which comes with hypothyroid and all this other stuff, and forces it into the position, well, I've now properly identified the vitiligo that I have is because of the toxic chemical exposure. And why is that? Well, you look at this. The types of vitiligo. There is mucosal genital. Yeah, I've got some of that, but that's also a part of the generalized symmetrical when it's all over your body. It's going to get everywhere. So I don't have that specific type. You know what I'm saying? It's non-segmental, universal, non-segmental, generalized symmetrical vitiligo. That's typically the autoimmune, this, that, and the other. Okay, well, I don't have that because I've done the testing for the autoimmune stuff. Well, now I'm at universal vitiligo, but it's not. Again, there's other things with that. The one that I actually have the symptoms of that do not have the autoimmune relations and don't have the other relations is occupational vitiligo or chemical leukoderma. Yeah, chemical leukoderma. It's chemical exposure vitiligo. I know that now because we've ruled everything else out. Ha 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 ha. That is how you have to do the science. That is how you have to do the doctoring. That's how you have to do all of this. If you want to be a good patient, don't be a hypochondriac. Actually pay attention to your systems, or to your symptoms. Actually pay attention to your diet. Pay attention to your habits, your routines, and know what the F is going on with your body. Or you won't figure this out. You're just going to it's going to be all over the place, okay? Especially if you're ADHD like me. Oh God, y'all better thank God I figured out how to mostly get control on my ADHD, or we wouldn't be having this discussion. I'm not medicated. I'm not anything. I just deal with it. This is partially how I deal with it, is actually diving into things and sorting them out and solving problems. I like doing it. Not everybody's like this. Some people are going to go nuts. So take this data. Like, just take it, use it. If you're potentially military toxic chemical cases, and the other, take it. Because now you end up in a situation where I'm in overall here. From the digestive to the allergy to this, that, and the other, this is what I know. I definitely have precancers associated with the toxic chemical exposure, top and bottom, up here, down here, okay? I definitely have a hiatal hernia that is associated with toxic chemical exposure. So GERD and Barrett's esophagus, toxic chemical. Hiatal hernia, toxic chemical. Mucosal nodules, which I have a 6 millimeter mucosal nodule that is benign, toxic chemical. Internal hemorrhoids, toxic chemical. IBS, toxic chemical. All of that stuff is associated with toxic chemical exposure. Well, do I have ulcerative colitis? Do I have all these other things? It was possible. You got to search for that, especially when you're having all these problems. But no, they test for all this stuff. So I do not have ulcerative colitis. I don't have Crohn's disease. Why? There's no intestinal metaplasia. You don't know what that is. You've never looked at, you don't have a clue what this stuff is. You've got to look it up. You have to know. Don't just wait and say, I think I got the thing. Figure yourself out. So I have no ulcerative colitis. I've got no Crohn's disease, no celiac disease. Thank God celiac disease is a glucose allergy. So they were able to rule those things out. Well, funny thing, all the fatigue and muscle exhaustion and stuff I was talking about that can be associated with peripheral neuropathy because of the skeletal, because of this, because of that, it's also associated with other things. Vitamin B12. If you're insufficient, then you probably have some fatigue and this, that, and the other, right? I didn't know this at the time. An overabundance of B12 can also cause similar symptoms because of the greatest nature of things. That's how things work. On either extreme is just as bad. Extreme left is bad as extreme right. Apply here. And so when you get into the meat of it, you say, okay, well, B12 test will test for blah, blah, blah. But why would I think of that? Well, because me personally, I take B12 every day. I did. I'd never had a B12 test done. It's just B12 is good for you. It's good for you, so just take some B12. So I'm like 500 micrograms of B12. Bottoms up every day. Great. It's just a nutrient. It's a supplement, for God's sake. Not a big deal. It can be. So I'm doing that, and I drink a Monster Energy drink here and there. Well, Monster Energy, even drinking one every other day, it's 500% your daily value B12. I'm constantly taking a bunch of B12. Is this a problem? Well, you're not going to overdose because your body only absorbs up to 2% of it. But also your liver can store a substantial amount. So even if you stop taking it, it can take up to 6 months for it to really clear out of your system. Jesus Christ. What can I do? Well, when you take B12 like that, that's not stored in your liver, okay? Or when you're taking it or you're drinking it in the Monster Energies, it has a 6-day half-life. So a few days at least before your test, stop taking the B12, stop drinking the energy drinks. Real simple. They didn't tell me to do that. I didn't tell my doctor I was going to do that. I just stopped doing it. I was like, I'm not going to take any B12 for a few days. Okay? I'm not going to drink the energy drinks for a few days. Half-life of 6 days. So by 3 days, you should be getting lower, whatever was in your system. My levels were over 905, or it was 905. Supremely elevated levels of B12. Put it to you this way, another side effect, another thing I got to look into, leukemia patients have high levels of B12 that are over 900. Over 900 is considered a cofactor for leukemia. I get it, that if it's less than 950, it's still technically within the normal range. But when you look at the NIH website, National Institute of Health, you look at the Mayo Clinic, and you actually do this research, over 900 is associated with leukemia. I'm 905 after not taking my B12 for a few days, okay? I was at 905. I expected to be tanked. Well, I did a few things with one simple test, with a B12 test. It wasn't a random thing. It was based on what I'm doing, my habits, my daily stuff, and I've never had a B12 test and I'm taking B12 and I'm exhausted. Maybe I need more. You can need injections. So you can do a maintenance level thing like with allergy shots. They give you allergy shots every week. They bring you up to maintenance level and then you're all right. Well, with B12, what they can do is they can bring you up to maintenance level with some injections, and then you take your B12 every day and it stays there because it stores in your liver or whatever, I don't know. And so there's ways to deal with it and manage it. So I might have been, had I had an insufficiency, I might have been not even masking it, but maintaining a base level of meh, enough to get by every day, but it was still tanked because my body didn't. So there was reasons to look into it. And happy byproduct by doing it, we've ruled out thyroid. We've also ruled out any autoimmune conditions related to B12 deficiencies that are related with vitiligo. It is definitely chemical exposure vitiligo, okay? We know that now. These are the things that do this. And so you get to the other things. Well, the digestive issues, I told you we rule out autoimmune conditions, this, that, and the other, ulcerative colitis, Crohn's disease, celiac disease, etc. Well, I can now rule out AIG, autoimmune intestinal gastritis. I have really bad inflammation, chronic and acute inflammation, and this and that from all the different conditions. But I do not have autoimmune intestinal gastritis. Why? Because I would have tanked levels of B12. I wouldn't have it. It would be crap. I'm at 905. Yay. But wait. Leukemia cofactor now. Okay? Leukemia cofactor. Well, I got this tired stuff going on. I got this muscle fatigue. I'm having breathing issues. You're thinking about the lungs, but breathing issues. Oh, gotta take a drink. Breathing issues associated with red blood cells. Red blood cells carry the oxygen. That being the case, then you have red blood cells associated with leukemia, breathing issues. There's overlaps. All this stuff intersects. It's just, what do you do? And so now I'm in a position where, well, even if we ruled out a CLR leukemia, an autoimmune leukemia, I still have to worry about a non-autoimmune leukemia or something that's not CLR that's associated with a myocellulite. I can't enunciate stuff that I haven't messed with enough, and I'm just now studying more on leukemia, so you're going to have to bear with me. I don't know all the things, but when it comes to blood flus or blood leukemia, blood cancer, now I'm like, okay, I don't have CLR, but I still got all these overlapping symptoms that are associated with, if not any lung stuff, still red blood cells and blood stuff that's associated with cancer. Well, crap. What do I do? Really simple. If you're a toxic chemical case, doctors know this. If you're in the military especially, they know the tests to do. They know what to do. If you're a civilian and you got doctors that aren't familiar with this kind of stuff, they're like, they got to look into it. It's not their fault. They don't deal with this crap every day, and they've had a lot of the data kept from them. So it's real simple. You do the lung x-ray. The thing that you would normally do first, I'm sitting here doing last after everything else, because I was ruling everything out and I was getting diagnosis properly. I was getting, you have this, and I was trying to manage all the symptoms. Still have symptoms, still have problems, still have lower back pain. Lower back pain's associated with cancers and such. Did you know that? Well, lower back pain's also associated with stomach issues. It's probably nothing. Who knows? Intersects and overlaps. It's just stacked on top of each other. You got to do the test. So with leukemia, what you can do is, it's a real simple CBC, controlled blood count. I haven't had one done. I checked my file. I looked through my blood test. I was like, well, let's think about this. Just so I'm not being crazy, what can I do? Okay, leukemia is associated with pale skin. Shit, I'm 80% albino. I can't. That's not going to help me. I know you're thinking, oh, well, pale skin. No, I mean, it's because of another condition. How the hell are you going to tell if I have pale skin if I'm already freaking albino? It doesn't make any sense. You can't. Wait, yes, I can. I still have some pigment left. Remember, I said we were going to bring this back. I still have some pigment left. What do I do? Well, I compared it with my mom, my dad, and my brother. My mom goes to Florida. She comes back looking like a leather bag. She's that dark, okay? My mom, my dad, my brother, they get a tan. I do not. Like, I have I'm not on the phone. I don't know how well you can, you're not going to be able to tell well on the phone. But it's that bad. I mean, actually, that kind of proves the point. Can you even tell I have any pigment on my arm? Because I do. Can't tell it with the phone right now, can you? Because the light's on it. Like, that's how bad it is. So, how do you tell? My pigment, where I have pigment, is still astronomically lighter than my mom, my dad, or my brother. Hey, that could be just because it's toxic chemical. You know what I'm saying? You got to do the blood test. You got to do it. You can't. I'm sitting here assessing and I'm like, I cannot rule it out. Can't be done. So those are the issues you're going to end up with if you're in this situation. There's going to be overlaps with cancer. There's going to be overlaps with autoimmune conditions. There's going to be overlaps with thyroid, this, that, and the other. Do the test. Do the test. Just do the test. If you have full coverage insurance especially, do it twice. I don't care. Do the test because how this works, you're 38 and your whole body says, fuck you. That's what happened to me. I was 37-ish. I had just gotten in the best shape of my life. I couldn't breathe. Couldn't function, couldn't anything. I was like, I should feel better. Why do I feel worse? Okay? Condition after condition. Everything, it's just diagnosis after diagnosis, okay? You will get hit like a ton of bricks. It's going to happen. If you're lucky, if you live long enough. I don't know how many of us died. I know a lot of them did from a lot of other places too. I don't know how many of us are even still around. Like, people should want the data from me. It's that unique. It's that serious. But the military has incentive to try to keep covering this crap up. And they don't want to pay us. Yeah, like they don't want to pay for it. They don't want to deal with it. They want us to deal with it. It's so they and this goes hand in hand with this. And I want to speak on this real quick first before I wrap it up. The military is smart. These are very smart people. Don't think they're not. They're smarter than you. Okay? I guarantee you. What they did was they decided, you know who enlists in the military a lot of the time? The children of veterans. If they lie long enough and they cover it up long enough, well, little Billy and little Tommy, they grow up to be like 19, 20, and they join up in the Air Force and in the Marines. Well, now they don't qualify for the class actions. They'll be taken care of through VA disability because they're not going to acknowledge that they did anything before they joined the military, you see. So imagine you're like me. You're born on that base. You're exposed to all the toxic chemicals, okay? And then nobody says anything. Nobody does anything. You get all these sicknesses, all these things going on when you're a kid. You get older and it's just getting worse, worse, worse. Finally, well, you turn 18, 19, and they haven't admitted it. They're not telling you, you know? And you sign up for the military. You sign your rights over. Do you realize at that moment, they then just claim that you got all the conditions from the military, and so all you get is disability? This was a massive cover-up, okay? Veterans' children enlist in the military, and then they don't get the class actions because they can't prove that they had the problems beforehand. And these problems are all delayed. They can be 15, 20, 30 years down the fucking road, okay? So they cover it all up. They keep convincing the veterans, get their kids to enlist, right? Then the kids re-enlist, just like daddy, just like grandpa, okay? But the kids got mesothelioma. The kids got effed up. The kids got all kinds of medical problems. And the military says, oh, gosh, darn. I can't believe we did that to you while you were enlisted in the military, and definitely not before. Man, we're just going to have to give you, we'll start you with 70% disability. And you go ahead and you fight us for a few years and we'll give you 100% disability. You deserve it. That's what you tried to fucking do to us, and you're not getting away with it. So, all that said, this is the mess that I am dealing with. This is the mess that I am left with. Overlapping symptoms, test, another test, got to rule it out. Is it this? Is it that? How do I do this? I'm over here like the mad scientist I always say I am, running diagnostics on myself while doctors act like, I mean, he's probably fine. He's young. Midlife crisis. He's 38. You will deal with this. It will happen to you if you were associated with any of it. Do it now. Do it now. It's only going to get worse. So I'll leave you with this. I'm going to get a chest x-ray to rule out mesothelioma, even COPD, emphysema, any of this other stuff. That's what's happening next. I am going to push for a CBC, a controlled blood count, because I need to be absolutely sure I don't have leukemia. And the reason why I also need to be absolutely sure I have leukemia is because the autoimmune-related leukemia, you can actually live with a relatively normal life for the rest of your life. If you don't catch the other ones early, the non-CLRs, they can wreck your shit. Okay? It's not a want. It's not a hypochondriac reaction. It's a necessary test that I have to explain to doctors over and over again, everywhere I go, why I'm a special, unique little snowflake. They don't even have it in the files that I had a bilateral testicular hernia removed when I was 4 months old. Last week, I thought it was when I was 4 years old until I talked to my parents and they were like, nah, you wasn't even a year old. We were still on the military base. Oh, this is what you're going to deal with. Process it now. Breathe it in. Deal with it. You're going to have to eventually anyway. So that's the best I can do for you guys today. All of it is going to overlap. All of it's going to be complicated. The best thing you can do is the same thing I'm doing over here. Ruled out, ruled out, ruled out, ruled out. Next test, please, until you are out of test or you are out of insurance. Thanks, guys. Talk to you at the next one.